Let's move on to our last topic of the day. There's been a lot of, not necessarily like a huge amount of team scoring, but there's a lot of individual players that are having kind of these monstrous scoring seasons. And right now we have 7 players averaging over 30 points a game. And for reference, typically at the end of the season, you're going to have like 1 or 2 guys averaging over 30. Right now we have 7, and then there's a couple more guys who are averaging 28 points a game. So they're knocking on that doorstep. So um, are you buying a huge scoring boom from the league stars this year?
Yeah, so I mean, if we want to count uh Dame Lillard, who's not quite qualifying for the leaderboard at 5 games played, but so if by the time he comes back and none of these other guys have fallen off, we could have at least 30 points per game scorers in the NBA, which sounds like a lot. We got Luka Doncic leading the NBA at 36 points per game, followed by Giannis at 32. Durant's averaging over 30, Donovan Mitchell, Steph Curry, Dame Lillard, Gilgeous-Alexander, and Jason Tatum. And then just outside that group, we have Ja Morant and Trae Young averaging 28. So yeah, I mean, how much longer are we going to have almost 10 30-point per game scorers in the NBA?
I mean, I'm not going to say I will say I don't imagine us to end the season with 8 guys that are averaging over 30 points per game. But I do think we will have probably 3 or 4 at least. I mean, there's no way Luca is not going to. I mean, at this point, he puts up 30 plus, you know, and 9 and 9. Like that's just what he does in his sleep. He basically averages a triple double. Giannis, I think, he's on a mission this year. And it would be very, very easy to see him finishing out the year averaging over 30. Kevin Durant's an interesting one. I mean, he's scoring just because like the Nets are kind of out of options, especially if Kyrie isn't going to play a significant amount the rest of the year. And even if he does, like who else is going to score on the Nets? They don't have exactly like a wealth of offensive talent or guys who can create offense. So like Kevin Durant is kind of their be all end all. So I mean, those 3 guys are probably pretty safe. The fall off is more like Donovan Mitchell with Darius Garland's back and playing alongside him as the second option. You'd expect that points per game mark to drop a little bit. And then Shea Gilgis, I mean, who knows? Maybe this is his breakout year, but we haven't seen scoring in this volume from him before. So unless he's ascended to another level, which, like he's still young. And OKC is also not a team that's blessed with a ton of scoring talent. So perhaps he closes out the whole year like that. But it wouldn't be overly surprising to see him fall back to earth a little bit and average more in the mid to high 20s.
I feel like with Shea, just due to being in OKC and, some injuries, both real and institutionally supported, I guess I'll say, we haven't really gotten to see him kind of put it all together for a season.
Yeah.
I still actually don't think we'll quite get to see that this season. But I think he's flashing the player that he is right now. He's not even shooting the ball that well. Right? Like
Yeah,
he's at 30% from 3. It's
he's
not like
not.
he's just on fire. He's just unguardable. He just teleports all over the paint. He's just the shiftiest player. I want to say he's the shiftiest player we've seen since Manu Ginobili, but like he's kind of shiftier than Manu Ginobili. He's got these like weird moves and cadence, and like his hesitations
Yeah.
are so strange, and he's like just scoring at the rim like a monster and just shaking defenders in this high ball. Like the only reason I would put him above Ginobili in that regard is just the volume that he's doing at it. He's getting the rim a ton. He's finishing like he's a center. His floater and his little mid-range pull-up is just like absolutely money right now. Like the only place he's not scoring well is from 3. But that being said, he's just above 30 points per game. I don't see that holding up. I think actually, if I was to take a bet right now, I'd say that we'll have 1 30-point per game scorer this year.
Oh, just Luca?
Just Luka. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
I think Middleton will come back, and Giannis will take just a couple less shots. Durant will get banged up at some point throughout the year. Donovan Mitchell's, like you say, Darius Garland is back, and they'll be, sharing that perimeter fire. And boy, what perimeter firepower do they have? It's really delightful to watch those two attacking guards play together. The Cavs are so fun. Absolutely. If you haven't watched the Cavs yet, anyone listening at home, watch a Cavs game soon. It rules. Yeah, I mean Curry, he's 34 years old.
Yeah, I agree on Curry. I think he'll drop down to earth a little bit more.
And then once we
But
get down to this range, these guys are all averaging like close to 30 at the beginning of the season. I just think yeah, maybe they'll have big scoring seasons and average 28 or 29. I just think 30 is tough to complete over a year. And anyone who thinks that the NBA's offensive rating or pace is out of control this year, the pace is only up 1 possession per 100 this year, and the offensive rating is actually just 0.1% lower than last year. So we're not seeing some sort of offensive explosion that people are imagining right now.
yeah, and we're talking about 8 guys that all average close to 30 in a normal season. So seeing them average a couple more points isn't necessarily impending doom that the NBA is just like all offense all the time. I will disagree with you that only one player is going to average 30, and I'm not going to say who it is. Between Kevin Durant, I think could get there. Trae Young, I think, is certainly a candidate to average 30, although with DeJounte Murray's increased scoring load or offensive role lately, maybe that's a little bit less likely. But my pick out of all the guys, I would love to say Damian Lillard. But I also understand that he's had injury issues. He's already gotten hurt this year. Anthony Simons is really coming into his own, being the second option on that team. There's definitely a world where Dame averages 26, 27 instead of closing out the season averaging 30. But my pick for the second guy, at least second guy to average 30, that I think is probably the safest is going to be Jason Tatum. Because as we've seen the past few seasons, Tatum is a second half of the year player. I mean, he always improves as the season goes on offensively over the course of a typical season, and really reaches his peak around or just after the All-Star break. I don't expect that to change. And they did have a really long playoff run last year. I get it, but he's also young, and he also continues to get a little bit better offensively every single year. So, and the other thing that I will say with Jason Tatum is he's averaging over 7 free throws a game, which isn't a ton for a lot of guys that average over 30 are closer to the 9 or 10 free throws a game mark. But it is promising for him, for a guy who's really struggled to get the line over the course of the past few seasons. Seeing that free throw attempt rate creep up there is 8 free throws a game. But yeah, seeing that free throw attempt rate creep up there is really promising for him.
He looks stronger this year, and he looks a lot more physically assertive, and that was something that was lacking from his game in the past. Just sort of, not that he was a weak player by any means, but just sort of not someone who was able to play kind of bully ball when he needed to. And in the couple Boston games I've watched, I've seen Jason Tatum play some serious bully ball and just overwhelm people at the rim. So if that's real, if that's a consistent trend, that's going to change Boston's championship outlook. If Jason Tatum's not someone who's going to just be forced to just become a mid-range pull-up shooter in the playoffs, if he's going to be someone who's going to be able to break a defense physically, that's going to be that's going to make Boston a very dangerous team in these playoffs. The only thing I'd say about Tatum and averaging 30 is just he's averaging 37 minutes a game right now, and I don't think that that's something that Boston should continue to do. They play him just 90s basketball level minutes, so he's averaging 30.3 points per game. He's playing 37 minutes, and I just think that minutes number is going to come down, and Jason Tatum could still have a huge breakout season, but average 28 or 29. That's just my prediction.
Yeah, I could see that. I will say the one caveat with Boston that would maybe lead to Tatum continuing in this increased offensive role, is they have not been the defensive juggernaut that they were last year. A
Yeah.
lot of people are blaming the coaching change, and I understand that could possibly have some impact. But I think the far bigger impact is this team really misses Robert Williams. They do not have that weak side defender who can really come in and protect the paint like they used to have last year.
Yeah.
Because Al Horford is not that player, and also the defensive player of the year. As funny as you and I both think it was that Marcus Smart won that award last year,
You
he
mean the
was a good
fifth best
defender.
player on the Boston Celtics?
Yeah, well, maybe that's a little too far, but he was a good
Fourth.
defender last year. Um,
He's at best the third best defensive player on the Boston Celtics. That's he's
yeah,
somewhere between the third and fifth, in my opinion.
well,
And I
well, he
think he's
hasn't
really
been.
good. I just think Boston's that stacked defensively, but I guess they're really putting that to the test with their 25th defensive ranking so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, Marcus Smart has not been close to that level this year. He's been bad defensively. Guys are blowing past him. Guys are getting whatever shot they want against him. I don't know if it's an injury. I don't know if it's complacency. Who knows what the deal is? But yeah, they really
Yeah.
miss Robert Williams, and they really miss having stout perimeter defenders at every level of the floor like they had last year. So, and that leads to them not being able to rely on their defense as much and needing Jason Tatum to create more points because who else on this team is going to get shots. I mean, Jaylen Brown's been great this year too offensively, but Tatum's
Yeah.
definitely their go-to
Yeah.
guy.
In terms of relying on Jason Tatum to get them points, that part is working out very well for them right now. So Boston defense is going to come around. There's no way you can have a defensive personnel like that and be this bad. I feel like that 25th ranking is going to one of these games, maybe like next week when they play Detroit and they're going to hold them to 60 points or something like that, and all of a sudden they'll be in the top 15 or something like that. Like that's the in terms of offensive and defensive ratings early in the season, blowouts just tilt our understanding of teams so dramatically. Like you score
Yeah,
140 points on a team, or you get 140 dropped on you, or you hold a team to 70, or you get held to 70, that is going to absolutely skyrocket you or drop you down when it counts for 10% of all your games, right? Because that's like you
yeah,
get like an 88 defensive rating in one game. That's 1/10 of your on the season defensive rating. So we try to figure out who's playing well defensively and offensively early in the season to assess where teams are. But like blowouts, like Boston, Chicago blew them out halfway through the season, and that's one of the reasons that their defense looks this bad right now. So
yeah. I mean, they did return the favor the other night, but
yeah.
yes, they did lose the first game to Chicago. Well, I will say, Celtics have been amazing on offense so far. They're right up there with the Mavericks at the top of the league. Kind of a role reversal from last year. Not that they were a bad offensive team last year, but top of the league defense, good offense. And this year it's things have shifted. I mean, they're missing their most important real MVP defensively, Robert Williams, but we'll see what the team looks like when he comes back. But I will
Yeah.
say, in terms of other guys that could average 30, right up there with the Mavericks and the Celtics, the Phoenix Suns have been a really good offensive team to start the year, and Devin Booker's continued ascent into superstardom has kind of fueled that. Chris Paul has not been good to start the year, but Devin Booker is picking up the slack, averaging 28. You don't see any case for Book to get into that 30-point scorer category.
I mean, he's averaging 27 right now. I just feel with the ups and downs of a season, you go through one little cold stretch, you're not averaging 30. So
Yeah,
right now we'd be looking at Booker continuing his present level where he's playing really, really, really well. And on top of that, go through one crazy stretch where he just has multiple 40-point games to get that over the level. So no, I think averaging 30 is hard. Like you just need a
Booker
lot
just
of
needs another.
consistency and
He just needs another 70-point game.
yeah, that's true.
Make up
That
for
would do
his
it.
cold spell.
Yeah. That would do it.